you're gonna put a new radio in your car, right? Okay, no big deal. Well, as long as you know what you're doing, there's basically a couple pieces that you need to know, a couple pieces of information that would definitely be very helpful to anybody taking on this task. You know, I'd give it like a 5 out of a 10 myself personally. I don't think it's very challenging, especially when you got guys like me on YouTube showing you how to do it for absolutely nothing, which I'm happy to do. I'm happy to share. I know this information, so I try to give it on to you guys. You guys are good to me. You subscribe and you give me the good comments. You do the right thing for me. So you know what? Here's some more for you. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to take this aftermarket receiver. It doesn't matter really what brand it is. However, this one is a Panasonic. Okay, so this is the one we're going to wire into where this old GM stereo was once at. You know, who wants this, right? Now here's what we're going to cover. In the back of this stereo, it's got the standard GM 21 pin plug. This here is, you know, what that plug is from the factory side anyway. You know, goes in there like so. So when you unplug your radio, this is what you're left with. Okay? So what I'm going to explain to you how to do the job is to get the appropriate harness, which is going to be the female end, to go into the male, which is going to work like so. Hang on a second. It would help if I knew what I was doing, right? Okay, so these two are going to just click in there. What the hell? Why are you giving me a hard time? Well, what's going on? Okay. I did it off camera because it was too embarrassing to do on the camera. Well, that clicks in there like so. So that there's your factory side of the harness. This here is the aftermarket harness. Now this here is a metra. Okay, this one here is made for GM, the 21 pin. This is a 70-1858. Just for your own reference, or if you were, for whatever reason, going to reinstall or rewire, or just wanted to know, this would be the opposite. It's a 71-1858. Metra uses the 71 as a prefix for the factory side of the factory harnesses. So if you ever actually need to know that, that's what it is. 71-whatever 1858 in this application. 70-1858 is the one that we're going to need, because this harness, which is going to be plugging into the factory GM harness, you don't want to take this and you don't want to cut it, you don't want to make a mess. That's not cool. So the moral of the story is that when you're installing this new Panasonic stereo into this GM vehicle, all you want to do, you want to go in there, you want to remove the stereo nice and clean, unplug it, and you want to adapt, okay, a new wire harness into that one. So that way it's going to be 100% reversible. So when the car breaks down or you sell it and you're going to go out and get yourself a new one, you want to go back in there, just take these two, unplug them, unplug the antenna adapter, which I'll get to in a second, pop back in your factory deck, take out your good stuff, and move along. So with the Panasonic that I'm using for my demonstration, like any radio aftermarket, they're all specific. They all have their own different kinds of harnesses. This is what this harness looks like. Okay, so you got this one and you got this aftermarket metra harness that you went out and purchased to do the job, right? Okay, so here's the idea. When you look at this harness and you look at the aftermarket harness, the wires are going to be in completely different pin configurations, different places in the harnesses. Don't let that sway you in any way. It doesn't mean anything. Whenever you're doing an aftermarket radio install into one of these metra harnesses, they're always going to go color to color. Okay, so you know, you got your pair of whites, white and black, that's your front left. Your gray and gray black, that's your front right. You're going to have your greens, that's your rear left. Your pair of purples is going to be your rear right. So that's 8 of those suckers. For your speakers, let me get this thing out of my way. Okay, now we're left with yellow, which is constant 12 volts. You got your black, that's going to go to chassis ground. You got your red, that's your accessory turn on. And this harness has 2 blue wires, one that's solid blue and one's blue white. The blue wire is for a power remote antenna or an active antenna. Some cars have them. Most cars these days do not. But if you have a power antenna, the blue is where you're going to want to put that wire to. The blue-white you would use as an option if you have an amplifier, an external amplifier. This is where you're going to apply that wire to. Okay, so in here, now this is like an older GM harness. It doesn't utilize a factory amplifier. However, if it did, there would be a blue-white harness in this plug right here. But you can see that there's not. There's those whites, the grays, there's the purples, the greens again. But what you're left with for power is your ground, there's your power antenna, there's your constant, there's your accessory, and this one here has two oranges, an orange and an orange-white. And you look on this harness, you don't see either. This is where it gets tricky, folks. But have no fear, I'm going to explain to you what the deal is here. Now, on here, you have the orange. The orange, all this is just parking lights. When you turn on your exterior parking lights, this wire is going to show 12 volts. If your radio is so equipped, it's going to dim the lights on the LCD. That's all this is for. The orange and white is the same type of deal, except this is a dimmer. It'll actually have varying voltage depending on how you turn your dimmer in your vehicle's dashboard. Okay, but again, this harness here doesn't even have that. This stereo here uses an organic display. It couldn't even support a dimmer if it wanted to. Okay, but if your stereo harness did have the orange, or it did have the orange-white feature, you're going to want to connect them color to color, just like anything else. Okay, so as far as getting into wiring, I'm going to show you how that should be done. This is the easy part. And you might be watching me when I'm doing this and say, well, why is it that you're going to do it this way? When I do wiring, with a car stereo anyway, I use these. These are crimp caps. Now, you might say, well, why aren't you using a butt connector, or why aren't you using this or that or whatever? There's a reason. I don't like solder. I mean, I have nothing against solder, but you know what? Soldering takes a very long time. It's messy. You could burn your seat if you're not paying attention, or burn your buddy if he's sitting there and goofing around. You can heat up your wires a lot. A lot of people don't have the proper tools, know-how to use solder. But if you want to use solder, you know what? Knock yourself out. Do whatever you want to do. But for me, whenever I had my stereo shop and I did installations on a day-to-day basis, I never used it. And the reason is because I'm there to make money. Using a crimp cap is no better or really any worse than using solder, in my opinion. And again, why I don't use a butt connector is because why should I do two crimps, which is double the chance of the wire falling apart, when I could just do one and make sure it's going to be right the first time. So that's my argument with the crimp caps. Because I can see somebody's going to come along and put some stupid thing in the comments and say, oh, you should do this. You know, that's what I do. You could do whatever the heck you want to do. So here's how I do it. Well, I guess if you knew everything, you'd probably be watching the video. You'd be making a video and teaching me how to do it, I guess. Okay, so there's the black. The blue wire is on both. So I'm going to put those guys together. Now, the Panasonic has a blue-white, and if I did have an amplifier, of course I'd be running an amp kit in there, and this is where I would extend and I would run that out to the amplifier, but that's not the case here. So what you're going to want to do in that case, I'm just going to cap that off. I doubled it up because I'm not using two wires, and the chances of it staying in that crimp cap is better if you double it up. Same thing goes for the oranges, the Illumination and the dimmer. Just cap those right off. Now we got the speaker leads left over, right? And a couple others. think the video had a little hiccup there. Sorry about that. Okay. All those guys are done. Just got the grays to do. There's your gray black. Front right. Gray's the last one. I just did these in advance because I know it's going to go a lot quicker for me that way. You just bang those things right out. People call it the darndest times. Closed at 5, buddy. It's weird, sometimes I stay here late at night and people will call. It's like 9 o'clock at night. You know what, we do have lives too. Okay, so that's done. This is my Panasonic side. This is the side that's going to go into the vehicle. But before I wrap this up, I also like to use a couple of wire ties because you see you got these stranglers kind of like hanging around. This doesn't look nice. You know, take the second, do a decent job. Put one on there. Hit one on the other side. If you're running RCAs and stuff as well, you might want to do the same kind of thing on your RCA preamp harness. And when it's all done, it should look something like that. So, how it's going to work now, is you got your Panasonic receiver, plug that right in there. This is going to go into my car side. Isn't that pretty? Oh yeah, that's pretty. Now there's one other thing that you might want to think about when you're doing this radio installation. I don't know if where you're at with your job, if you already got your parts, if you're already right now doing the job and you're watching this video to bail yourself out. The main harness part we already tackled, but also just for your own reference, for most cars, I'm going to actually have to make a whole nother video just about this one topic because it's so overlooked by people. On this GM, you see this a tiny little antenna plug, and you look at this one, they're like half the size on the GM, and this one here has just a universal male. This one here has what's called a mini GM. Takes this little tip, and then this here is what a standard universal looks like. You can see that there's a tremendous size difference. This is what this here radio is looking to accept. So in this case, you are going to need an antenna adapter. So if this was the factory side, and you plug that in, that's going to be a fit. Otherwise, you're never going to get radio reception. So don't forget the antenna adapters, people. And that's really all there is to it. Look at how that looks. Ready to go, man. Rock and roll.